What's up guys, thank you for joining me. I'm your host Sam, and today I'm doing a beginner's tutorial for color correction and color grading in Davinci Resolve 17. I'm going to be showing you guys my entire workflow from start to finish in the color tab, and let's just get right into it. So here we are in Davinci Resolve, and before we do anything, these two clips are from two different cameras. This is some stock footage that I got from Motion Array, and this is my own personal footage. So before we do anything, I want to go down to project settings, and I want to go to color management, and instead of Davinci Y RGB, I want to go to the same thing but color managed. And I want to leave on automatic color management and hit save. And what that's going to do is it's going to detect the codecs of these two different videos, and it's going to automatically convert them to Rec 709. If you don't do this, your colors may turn out wonky whenever you go to deliver the video. So now onto our color tab, we're just going to get right into this and start building a node tree. This first node I'm going to label white balance and color correct. We're going to hit Alt S for serial node, and the second one is going to be labeled exposure. We're going to make another serial node, and we're going to name this one skin tones, and yet another serial node, and we're going to name this one look. Now we don't want this look node to affect our skin tone, so what we're going to do is we're going to highlight the look node, we're going to hit Alt L for layer node, pull this down here, and then we're going to attach these blue dots here. And what that's doing is it's just going to make the skin tones bypass the look so that we're not affecting the skin tones with this node up here. But we'll get to that more in a little bit. First, we're going to start out with our white balance and our color correct. Right now what I'm seeing is there's a lot of blue in the shadows of this image, and there's also a lot of yellow and orange in the highlights here on the mask, and we're just going to try to correct for that so that we have more white highlights and more black shadows. So first I want to look at my parades down here. If you don't have these parades, just click up there and find parade. Right now I'm seeing the reds are lower than the greens, and the greens are lower than the blues. And same goes for up here, only reverse. So the blues are really low and the reds are really high, the greens in the middle. So the blues are really squished, the reds are really not squished. And we're just gonna try to correct for that. But we don't wanna do that with our primary color wheels. We wanna do that with our log color wheels. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna start moving this around and try to flatten everything out in the shadows. So basically we're just trying to even that up down there and get everything to pretty much match. Of course, I'm messing it up. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but close is good. And if you hit Shift D, you can see before and after. Before, there's a lot of blue in these shadows, as I said. After, it gives us a nice black point there. Now, as for the highlights, you're just gonna do the exact same thing. You're just gonna try to even everything out up at the top of that parade. Just watch your parade while you're moving it around and see if you can get them to even out. So that looks pretty good. Again, Shift D, before, these are really orange in the highlights. After, nice and white. We can also move the temperature and the tint around, but I'm not gonna do that. I just wanted to color correct this image. Now that we're happy with our white balance and our exposure, we're gonna start working on the skin tone. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna click on the skin tone node, and we're gonna come down to this qualifier down here. And what this does is you can just drag the dropper over any color or exposure in the image. And if you hit this little magic wand up here, you'll see exactly what you're qualifying. And that just gives us control over one area of the image. So now I have control of that light, but what we're going after is her skin tones. So you're just gonna click on the skin tones only and just drag across until you have most of the skin tones qualified. That looks pretty good there. And then what I like to do is qualify a little too much and then try to narrow it down some. So basically we just don't want anything in the background selected. If you see some of the skin tones start to go when you're narrowing these down, you want to stop because you want all the skin tones selected. So that looks pretty good. I'm gonna jack this denoise up some just so that it's not so abrupt when I start moving the skin tones around. Also the clean blacks here, just because it's, you know. And that looks pretty good. So now that we have our skin tones qualified, I'm gonna make sure that I'm on my log wheels, and I'm gonna start moving the shadows up towards the red a little bit. And you'll see it gives her skin some glow. On more golden skin like that, you definitely wanna toe the line between like red and magenta. If you hit Shift D for deactivate, it deactivates all the nodes. If you hit Control D, it deactivates just the node that you're on, so you can see exactly what your skin tone node is doing to her skin. I like that so far, but I'm also gonna pull these midtones over towards the orange. Before, after, before, after. And I'm liking where that's at. That looks pretty good so far. So right now this image is more than deliverable. I think it looks really nice how it is, but I'm also gonna add a look over it, as I said earlier. So in our look node, we're gonna go back to our primaries wheel, and I'm just gonna pull this down towards like a teal green area, which looks crazy on its own, but we're also gonna offset that by pulling the gamma up towards the orange a little bit, just to get those skin tones back on her. And now you might notice there's a serious blue cast in the shadows again. What we're gonna do to balance that out is we're gonna come over to our log wheels, and we're gonna pull the shadows up and do the opposite of what we did with our lift. And see how that just clears everything up like pretty much instantly? So if we deactivate that node, it's so subtle, but it just looks good. It gives it that little look in the shadows of blue, and you know, that look, that teal and orange look that everybody's after. It helps that this is a beautiful image to begin with. That's how I do my teal and orange look with the skin tones qualified and everything, but let's take a look at another clip and another method of doing this same look. So here we are on the next clip. We have a slightly less attractive subject, but we're gonna do this in a different way because it's always good to have separate tools, and that's one of the things that I love about Davinci Resolve is there's always like 1,000 different ways that you can do something. So we're gonna name this first node white balance. We're gonna add a serial. We're gonna name the second one exposure. We're gonna make a third serial node. We're gonna name this one look, and then we're gonna hit Alt P for parallel nodes, and we're gonna name this middle one skin. We're gonna name this bottom one high cut, and then we'll make another serial node at the end here, and we'll call this one high key. So with the white balance, what I'm gonna do is use the qualifier and see if I can get a good qualification. That looks kind of green to me. That looks pretty even to me. There's like this weird peak in the blues. I don't really know what caused that, but with the highlights, we can just pull the red closer to the greens and try to get the blue up a little bit. So before, after. That looks pretty good. And with the exposure, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back to our primary wheels and pull the gamma up a little bit and just pull the highlights back a hair because they were kind of harsh on my face there. And then with the lift, we're gonna go down, get a real dark, moody look for this one. And I'm liking where that's at, but we could add some contrast. Yeah, I'm liking where that is going. So for our look node, what we're gonna do is we're gonna pull this down towards the greenish teal area, but not too much. It's really easy to go overboard in a shot like this. And then with the gamma, we're gonna go straight up towards the skin tones there, try to get some of my skin tones back in this shot. We don't want to go too overboard, and don't forget we're going to correct in our log wheels for that lift that we just created. That looks good. So over to our log wheels, we're going to pull the shadows up a little bit to try to get that black point back. I think that looks pretty good right there. Looks pretty natural. Control D, so that disables the look node. Before, after, before, after. Gives that nice blue, moody darkness in the background there. And let's move on to our skin. So for our skin, we're gonna go to our hue versus saturation curves. click red and pull the saturation up a little bit. And I'm just trying to get some red in my face there. And we can also go over to the hue versus luminance and do the exact same thing. And if I disable that node, you'll see it's not doing a whole lot. It's just adding some glow to my face. I might even have gone overboard with the luminance. I might pull that down a little bit because those highlights are so harsh. But I'm liking where that node is at right now. You can also back out with Shift Z to get a normal sized image again. And we could do more to this, but I'm liking how natural this looks, and it's still gloomy, but it's natural. It's not like a real hard look. With our high key node, what we're gonna do is come here and then come back to the high cut, because on the high key node, what I wanna do is enable editable splines, and we're gonna click right up here and just pull this up a little bit. But because the highlights are so harsh on my face, I don't wanna go too crazy with this. And what I'm gonna do is, after doing that, we're gonna come to this high cut. We're gonna try to qualify just the real hot parts on my face. And all we're gonna do is denoise that some, and we're gonna pull these highlights back a little bit so that they're not so crazy. Yeah, see, there's still definition in the highlights in my face. They're not all muddy and stuff. If I disabled this, they're super bright for some reason. I think my light was just turned up a little bit too high. And I love how this turned out. Like, it looks great. I wish all my videos looked that great. That's about all I do to that image. It looks nice and natural. It's nice and gloomy in the background there. We could even go past the high key and add a vignette, however you friggin' spell that, and use a power window. And then we're gonna pull that like right in the center there over me. Widen this out and then just pull the softness all the way out. And then you wanna invert that power window and then just pull this down a little. Oh, we still have the splines on. You gotta turn off the splines. Just pull this down a little bit. Yeah, that's super nice. I'm really liking the way this turned out, so. Woo! So that's before, after. Before, after. I think that looks great, in my opinion. I wouldn't do another thing to that. Anyway, that's been my tutorial on color grading and color correcting in Davinci Resolve 17. I hope you got something out of this. If you did, consider going down and hitting the like and the sub button. It means the world to small content creators like me. Thank you for joining me on another tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!